Hello, everyone. Welcome to our third Property Finder webinar, where we share our data to help you navigate you through the COVID-19 situation. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ari Keshishoğlu, and I'm the president of the Property Finder group. Now, time goes by. This is our third webinar already, and we do once per week. And it looks like we started a trend with many other companies doing that, which is great. And this is what being a market leader is like. We will continue to shape the market and help your businesses. Now, similar to previous weeks, welcome to my home. As for the guidance, we're all working from home. And I want to start by explaining the why of the webinar, in case this is your first time attending it. The coronavirus case is affecting the economy. We are all in this together. We want to be great partners to you. And we only do well if your business thrives. And lack of visibility and not being able to see what's going on is a big problem in any crisis. We as a company have a lot of data and amazing data scientists, and we will share some of these insights with you today. Now, I myself started my technology career as an analyst at Google 15 years ago, so I have some experience in this. Now, and the structure today will be very similar to our structure in the past few weeks. We'll start with a presentation. We'll give you a quick update on the COVID-19 data, and then we'll update you on the impact we see on the UAE real estate market. And this week, we're going to add data by different Emirates, because this is what you asked of us last week, and we always take your feedback. And we also will share some trends that you can turn into actions. Then at the end, there will be a possibility to ask questions. Some we will answer directly in the chat, and others during the Q&A at the end of the presentation. After the webinar, as always, we'll also send you an email to get your feedback so that we can make this even more useful for you next time. Now, before I go into the webinar content, I also want to clarify a point. We're doing this webinar to give you insights and market information so you can navigate the crisis better. Now, our aim is not to talk about Property Finder's commercial offers. If you want to know more about our commercial offers, we have other channels for that. For example, Michael just shared a video this morning about further actions we're taking to support your business. If you haven't checked that, please do that right after this webinar. If you ask a question, my friends can send you the link to it, and if you haven't seen it, privately in this webinar as well. Now, we realize that it is very difficult times, and we're doing our best in supporting you with commercial offers through this difficult time. As I mentioned last week, it's also very difficult times for us at Property Finder. We made very hard decisions, like closing down our operations in Lebanon and Morocco, and sadly, letting our teams go. Our entire staff in the UAE took salary cuts, with more senior people taking significantly more cuts than the more junior people. Michael isn't taking any salary in. Myself and our C-levels took the highest cuts, and literally everyone in the UAE received salary cuts. There are also a high percentage of our employee base that we had to put into what we call a hibernation mode. They're in our insurance and our visa, because we don't want we want to do as much as we can for them as well, but they're only on a very minimum allowance to help them survive, literally. So we made very difficult decisions to support you during this time, and please check Michael's video to learn about details about these and also our support to you. Now, having said all this, we want to separate any commercial offerings we have from the insights and information that we're providing to you. This webinar is to help you make better decisions and hopefully help you create more business to you thanks to these insights. This week, next week, or the week after. For commercial offers, please use our other channels. Your account managers are also there to help you if you wish. I can simplify this further with a sports analogy. And UAE is a very diverse country, and football is statistically the most popular game in the world, so I'm going to use football. In football and other games, you have defense and offense. Both are obviously very important to win the game. Now, improving your cost base, your efficiency, and all these would be very, very similar to your defense line and will be covered by our commercial offers. We're doing these and realize these are super important. We'll continue to monitor the situation. However, the content here is not about defense. Why? Because I am sure you will agree with me that when I say that you cannot win the game if you do not score goals. I'm sure you will agree that it is categorically impossible for any teams to win a game by defending only. That is why this webinar and its entire content is focusing on scoring goals. It is here to help you score more this week, next week, or in the ones after. And I understand sometimes this week might be more difficult than last week, but eventually there will be a recovery, and we want to help you so that you can plan your actions when things are starting to get better. Because we want you to win, and we want you to be your best partners that helps you in winning. Now, with that, let me dive into the content. Next slide, please. Now, together with me, like the previous weeks, I have Lynette Abad, who's our Director of Research and Data. And we also have Stuart Shapley, who's our Director of New Homes. And Stuart is also running our coronavirus response approach at the moment. We also have team members behind the scenes so that we can have a smooth experience today. Next slide, please. Every week, we ask you whether you're happy with the content of the webinar. And these are the results of the survey that we sent to you last week. Now, according to the survey, I want to share the results of them. So first, you said that you scored us a 4 out of 5 for being as transparent as we can with you. You also scored us a 4 out of 5 in that you told us that you trust that we're being your best partners during this time. Now, thank you for your trust. We are working very hard and are making many sacrifices to earn your trust. We will continue to do that. Now, also 91% of the survey respondents thought that the webinar met or exceeded their expectations. And for the first time last week, we asked you how you think of the market recovery time, because it's important for you to see like what others are thinking. And about close to more than 40% of you thought that the recovery time is 1 to 3 months. About a quarter of you thought that it's 4 to 6 months, and about 1 in 5 thought that it's 6 to 12 months. And there's a very small minority who thought that this would be lasting for longer than a year. Now, while it's a positive sign that the majority of you anticipate a shorter recovery time, we also know that these are really tough times to go through for all of us. And now let's start by diving into the data. Next slide, please. First, we'll start with the COVID-19 situation. Next slide, please. Now, the number of cases continue to increase exponentially globally and in the UAE since we last spoke. There are now more than 1 million cases globally. And in the UAE, we reached 1,500 cases already. Now, as a result, UAE government continues to make difficult decisions. For example, Dubai is almost entirely at home this week. Other Emirates are a bit different, and we'll also dive to other Emirates today. So not everywhere is Dubai, and we need everyone. We want to share our information with everyone. Now, next slide, please. Now, one important metric to look at is the number of cases per 1 million inhabitants. So for every 1 million person that lives in a country, how many COVID-19 cases are there per country? Now, and as you can see on the chart on the right, in the UAE, there are about 150 cases per 1 million people, and this scores rather low on that. So basically, the higher this number is, the worse the situation is for a country. And Spain is top of the list. Switzerland is also close, and Italy is doing bad, as you probably are reading the news, etc. And I personally think the UAE government is doing an excellent job in managing this situation, and they're following all the best practices that we see around the world. Now, and then on the left side, you can see some of the additional measures that they took. So there are expanded financial stimulus, there extension of the movement restrictions, extension of the sanitization operations, and also a significant increase in the medical tests that they're doing. And looking at like how fast they're moving, it is actually impressive a government move this fast. Now, like what we discussed last week, the more decisive the actions, the faster the start of the recovery. Next slide, please. Now, let's start looking at the real estate data. Now, we have the best data on the UAE real estate market, and we're going to share that with you. Now, I will hand over to Lynette so that she can walk us through. But as I mentioned earlier, this time, so far we have shared either UAE only or Dubai, UAE total or Dubai only data. This week we're starting to share other Emirates information as well. And so we'll start with that. And at the end, we're going to show you new data and what kind of actions it suggests, because we want to help you score, because we want to help you manage your business well during this time, either this week or next week or the week after, and as well as in the future. Now, with that, let me hand over to Lynette. Lynette?
Hello, everybody. Very nice to be with you here today. I've been having a little bit of technical difficulties, so I hope everything goes well. So let's start with this slide. Last week, we showed you a new piece of information which was critical. Number of listings and number of listing views or impressions. Here's an update. The number of listings started to slightly decline. However, the number of views increased against last week. So listing views are important as they are the very top of your sales funnel. As a comparison, leads are down 20 to 50% year on year for comparable portals in Europe and the US. This is from Mike Delpreet's webinar last Friday. Next slide, please. After listings and listing views come the leads. The chart on the left is a weekly comparison of sales leads year on year, updated with last week's trend. If it is above the line, it means that there were more leads that week compared to the same week last year. You can see that sales leads continue to be impacted since the lockdown in the UAE. However, a new piece of information for this week. The impact is very different from one emirate to the other, and we believe this is because Dubai is the only emirate on full lockdown. Dubai was the most impacted. Since the beginning of March and even more after the lockdown, we were down 65% against last year in the last 2 weeks. Abu Dhabi was much less. It was down 10%. And the Northern Emirates are the least impacted in terms of sales leads. Next slide, please. This week, we also look at the trends for apartments and villas separately and by emirate. So in Dubai, sale leads for apartments were the most impacted, 49% decrease last week against the first week of January. The decline across all price categories except for apartments above 10 million, even though that is a very low volume of searches. Sales leads for villas were much less impacted, less 7% against last week, against the first week of January. All price ranges except for between 2 million to 5 million had more leads last week than the first week of January. Next slide, please. Now, let's look at the other Emirates who are not in full lockdown. In Abu Dhabi, sale leads for apartments were the most impacted. They were down 33% last week against the first week of January. Decline across all price categories except for apartments between 3 million and 5 million. However, sale leads for villas were up. They were up 50% last week against the first week of January. All price ranges except for between 1 million to 3 million had more leads last week than the first week of January. Villas below 1 million had 5 times more leads last week than the first week of January. Next slide, please. In the Northern Emirates, sale leads for apartments were the most impacted, down 26% last week against the first week of January. There was a decline across all price categories except for apartments below 250,000. Sale leads for villas were up. They were up 25% last week against the first week of January. All price ranges except for over 5 million had more leads last week than the first week of January. The price range with the highest increase in leads in terms of volume was between 1 million and 2 million. And I want everyone to keep in mind the difference between apartments and villas and these trends, as we're going to talk a little bit about it later. Next slide, please. Rental has a similar trend, with leads decreasing since the lockdown in Dubai and to a lesser extent in Abu Dhabi. However, the rental leads in the Northern Emirates continue to increase significantly against last year. Let's have a look at the rental leads trend by price range. In Dubai, rental leads declined since the first week of January across all price categories except for apartments above 500,000 dirhams. Next slide, please. In Abu Dhabi, rental leads declined since the first week of January across all price categories except for apartments between 200 and 250,000. Interesting to note, rental leads for units above 500,000 increased 4 times more between last week and the first week of January in Abu Dhabi. Next slide, please. In the Northern Emirates, rental leads declined since the first week of January across all price categories. However, the least affected category are the cheapest units, which are rentals below 150,000. Next slide, please. After leads come the transactions. Sales transactions continue to decline versus 2019. Again, sales transactions have a 40-day cycle on average. So what we see on this chart could have been agreed upon before the situation deteriorated. In April, as of yesterday, there have been 207 sale transactions recorded, 130 in the all-plan sector and 77 in the secondary market. Now, I know this has been a very confusing topic. I've had many conversations with you and the government regarding transferring property today. It is possible. I spoke with Dubai Land Department yesterday, and I spoke with a registration trustee, Al Manara, and they are transferring property. Yesterday, Al Manara transferred 12 properties, and they're also doing mortgage settlements. So it is possible, it is happening. Please get in touch with us or the registration trustees. Everything is done online, and it is a process between the registration trustees and the Dubai Land Department. On the right side of this slide, we will show you the top 10 communities for off-plan sale in March 2020, broken down by unit type. So as you can see, the trend was still continuing from last year for the top areas for off-plan transactions. So you had Dubai South, Arabian Ranches 3, the Valley, Villanova. And then also for apartments, we have Business Bay, Downtown Dubai, MBR City, and JVC. Next slide, please.
Dinesh, let me summarize and take it over from here. Thank you. So overall, what is happening now? Despite the number of listings are going down, listing views are up. So it's actually 15% up last week for both rental and sales. Now, what this means is for any listing that is up there, it is getting more listing per views, right? So because number of listings go down, the total views go up. So on average, every single listing is getting more view on average. Okay. Now this is a crucial trend. Second, sales leads were primarily affected in Dubai. Across all other Emirates, sales leads for villas are much less impacted, and even growing in Abu Dhabi and the Northern Emirates. Now this is also a very important insight, because Dubai is in lockdown. Other Emirates are in different phases. So if you have a multi-Emirates business, you might consider reallocating your resources, or you might consider focusing more on other Emirates. This is what I mean by giving you insights. Okay, so whenever there is an opportunity, we want to highlight that to you so that you can score more goals. Now, in rental, similar to last week, the least affected is the high price category. It looks like this is a trend. The high price category in rentals are least affected of all the price categories, especially in Abu Dhabi. Now, Rental leads, they continue to be above 2019 levels in the Northern Emirates. This is also a very interesting insight. Again, UAE is more than Dubai. While Dubai is very big, UAE is more than Dubai, and the situation is different in the other Emirates from a leads perspective, from a views perspective, etc. And also sales transactions are slowing down. But even in Dubai, and this is what Lynette confirmed, we got an answer from the government representative saying that it is possible through a new digital process. If you want to know how, we can share the details of like what we heard, or we can direct you towards the right direction. Next slide, please. Now, so we spoke about the trends of listings and leads, how they're going. And we started last week sharing with you some interesting things that are going on. So the obviously users and people like all of us, we are adapting to this situation. And that is leading to different activities. That is leading to different behaviors that we see very, very clearly in our data. And we have a very large data base. We have the best data scientists, and we work super hard for you to bring some of them to you. Now, there are a few, and then I'll also repeat last week's ones with you in case you were not here with us last week. Next slide, please. Now, the first one is, now these are the percentage of house searches in total searches, okay? Now, customers are looking for bigger places. Now, we don't know exactly why. We have theories, but one, I think, rather safe guess is that people are having to spend more time indoors, okay, because you know there are social movement restrictions, and thus when you're in that, then you're like, okay, let me try to rent or buy a little bigger place. Okay? And this is very clear with from data. This is definitely going on. So and so basically, you know, it means that, you know, there are more searches in that are villas. So on any week, you know, you look at the if there are 100 searches, like this week, there were 31% more searches on villas. Okay, and this increased, you know, over the past couple of weeks. So if you have house listings, then boost them. You might want to use any allocation that you have for them. And also an interesting insight is this might lead to long-term and permanent user behavior changes as well. So for example, someone who previously preferred a smaller flat in downtown might now opt for a larger villa in like a little further from the downtown. Now, this trend is likely to continue as, you know, people spend more time in their homes. Next slide, please. The second interesting insight, again, this is super obvious from our data, is that people are looking for places with outdoor spaces. Now, so just a couple of weeks ago, about 4%, 4 to 5% of our users were looking for places with outdoor space. Now that has almost doubled in a couple of weeks. And again, this is very, very, very likely to be a result of the situation right now. So you spend more time at home. Okay, in Dubai, you are even not allowed to go out of your home except for very, very basic things. And obviously people are adapting. So if you have the potential, if you're looking for a place right now, you would be looking for a place with an outdoor space. And this is what's happening. Now, what's the action for you that can increase number of leads? If your listing has a balcony or an outdoor space, highlight it in the title and also highlight it in the images for sure. This is going to increase the user engagement. Next one, please. Now, also similarly, there is a significant increase in percentage of searches for houses with pool. And as you know, these would be in the high price category, likely overall. And this has seen an even stronger increase versus the past, versus the outdoor space. So a tiny percentage of people were looking at houses with pool. Now that has more than doubled in the past couple of weeks. Now, again, the insight here, the action that can help you score more at these difficult times is if your listing is a house with a pool, or if the apartment or if the building has a swimming pool facility, highlighted in the title and the images. Again, this can increase, this is likely going to increase the engagement by the users. Let's go to the next slide, please. Now, last week I shared with you that we enabled virtual tour increases. Now, again, in Dubai, we understand that right now it is very difficult, if not impossible, to even record new recordings. In other Emirates, the situation is different. But I want to share the data here with you. Now, for anyone who has added a virtual tour, has increased their chances of getting a lead from the listing significantly. So there are 21% click rates to any listings with a virtual tour included, and then there of the people who click, 22% of them watch the virtual tours. So, and then as a result, if you think about the lead, users who view a virtual tour are two times more likely to submit a lead. So whenever you can, if it's possible for you, again, it might not be possible this week, maybe not next week in Dubai, it is possible in other Emirates, but whenever you can, use the virtual tour. It is completely free for anyone to use, and you are definitely going to get on average increased number of leads from these sort of listings. These are significant material changes, like a 2 times increase in the likelihood of submitting a lead isn't normally comes into play. Now here, this is definitely the case. So it's very, very crucial. Next slide, please. Now, so I want to summarize what the insights, what are the actions that you can take from the insights that we shared this week. And I also want to repeat the insights that we had last week. Now, number one, customers are increasingly looking for houses. And I mentioned we're likely seeing a change in user behavior. I repeat, this is likely to be a change in user behavior, and people are likely to be preferring, if it's the same price, people who used to prefer apartments in like more higher priced areas, now they're going to prefer houses with like larger spaces, but maybe a little bit outside. This is clearly what we see in the trend. Also, another user behavior change that we're noticing is that they're also looking for outdoor spaces, and balcony in particular, as well as houses with a pool, is also getting more attention from the users. And the virtual tours, just like I shared, can support you generate more leads. Again, a 2 times increase versus the average listing is a very, very, very material increase that I recommend you not to ignore. So whenever you can, and again, might not be this week or next in Dubai, but after that, whenever you can, definitely use virtual tours. This is a significant boost for your business. And I also want to repeat what we covered last week, especially for those of you who were not here last week. By the way, the recordings are available on our website, and you can always see them later on as well. So in rentals, the least affected category is the high price one. Okay, and like what we saw in the data that Lynette shared as well, the high price category is continuing to be the least affected across everything. Okay, so it looks like this is a rather stable trend, and we'll see what next week brings, but this has been rather stable. Now, second insight that we shared last week is that in rentals, payment terms are significantly more important now. We have seen, similar to the outdoor spaces and pool and villas, trends that we have seen this week. Last week, we also shared with you that there is significant increase in people searching for rentals with 6 or 12 checks, and in a way that is very material. So if you have these sort of properties, either talk to a good idea could be talk to the landlords to see if they are willing to accommodate this. And if you have these properties, highlight that in the title, highlight that in the description. Okay. And another insight, the last insight that we had shared last week, was that the answering rates to calls, because we have call tracking available, were very similar to before the situation, right? So it was almost like a flat line, so around that 60-65%. And if there are less leads, so your agents, everyone must be having should be having more time. So and increasing the answering rates is definitely going to lead you to more business. Now, so this is the summary of the insights that we will share, and I want to repeat this very openly again. This is the reason why we're doing this webinar. We want to give you as many insights, as many data that we can, so that with even a decreased number of leads, you can continue to generate business. And as I said, situation is different in Dubai versus the other Emirates, and we have a UAE audience in this webinar. And it's important because we want to help you win, not only defend. And this webinar is about winning the game. And obviously, we want to be your best partners in doing that. And we will continue to share these insights with you every week.